Third reading of the Strikes Minimum Service Levels Bill. Lord Callanan.
My Lords, I beg to move that the bill be now read a third time.
The question is that this bill be now read a third time. As many as are of that opinion will say content. The contrary not content. The contents have it. In the Schedule Amendment 1, Lord Collins of Highbury.
My Lords, I won't detain the House for too long. I'm very grateful to the Public Bill Office and the clerks for advising me on these consequential amendments arising from the amendments carried by the House when we considered amendments at report. So I'm grateful for these technical amendments to be approved by the House. I must admit that it doesn't particularly change my view on the overall impact of this bill, but I am hopeful that the government will focus on achieving settlements, particularly in the health service, which we've seen some progress. I don't see that this bill, even as amended, will improve the situation, but I hope noble Lords will consider these technical amendments and send this bill back as speedily as possible.
Amendment proposed. Page 7, leave out lines 13 and 14. The question is that this amendment be agreed to.
My Lords, these amendments are intended to tidy the bill following the vote to amend the bill at report stage. They intend to remove references to section 234E from the bill, which was removed due to the passing of Amendment 5. By convention, the government does not oppose these amendments, as we have a duty to send the bills to the other place that are internally consistent. However, I would like to make it clear that the government fully expects these topics to be revisited following the consideration of these amendments in the other place, which would ultimately result in them being reconsidered here also.
Well, I note the noble Lord's comments. I just hope that when they do return here, we will have the same level of scrutiny, because this is a bad bill with certain consequences which will not improve industrial relations in this country. In fact, it will make it worse. It won't achieve the objectives that the government set out. It will have the complete opposite effect. But bearing those comments, I welcome the noble Lord's commitment to agree to these amendments.
Not moved?
I beg to move.
The question is that this amendment be agreed to. As many as are of that opinion will say content. The contrary not content. The contents have it. Amendment 2, Lord Collins. Amendment proposed, page 8, line 21. Leave out 234A and section removal and insert and 234A. The question is that this amendment be agreed to. As many as are of that opinion will say content. The contrary not content. The contents have it. The question is that this bill do now pass. As many as...
My Lords, I beg to move that this bill do now pass. Let me start by thanking all the noble Lords who have contributed to the scrutiny of this bill. We did have an extremely thorough and perhaps at times slightly repetitive debate, but that of course is the nature of the parliamentary process. I am grateful to everyone who engaged in that process. In particular, I would like to thank my noble friend, my whip, Baroness Bloomfield, who, as usual, has kept us all in order, and thankfully nobody fell asleep during this one, so we were all spared her wrath on this occasion. Let me also thank the opposition members who contributed, Baroness Barron, Lord Markham, Lord Murray from the government, who also contributed to taking various clauses through. My noble friend Baroness Noakes, who of course is not in her place, for her support, and the thoughtful and considered contributions of opposition and Liberal Democrat front benches, as well as various crossbenchers. Of course, as is the nature of things, I didn't agree with all of the contributions, but nevertheless I know everybody approached it in a consistent frame of mind. Of course, I am disappointed that the bill leaves this House in a condition that is not as the government would have preferred, and I hope that the upcoming consideration of the amendments in the other place will present an opportunity for the elected House to reconsider the bill again following the modifications from this House and its contents, and the government fully expects many of the matters in the bill to be reconsidered in this House. The bill comes at a critical time for our country, where continued industrial action is having a real and material impact on the public up and down the country. That is, of course, why the bill was introduced in the first place, and the government still believes that the bill gets the balance right between the right to strike with the rights of the public to go about their daily lives unencumbered by industrial action.
My Lords, may I make two sentences? The first is to thank the Noble Lord the Minister and the Minister's colleague for their great courtesy in discussing various points. And the second is to say that I hope we learn something from this bill. And it's a simple lesson. This is not the way to legislate.
My Lords, as the Noble and Learned Lord has just said, this bill arrived in a flawed state when it came to your Lordship's House. It sought to bypass Parliament and indeed bypass the devolved assemblies with the aim of implementing a system where the Secretary of State and they alone could implement service levels that effectively make strikes illegal, exposing individuals to the risk of being fired for striking. My Lords, thanks to the hard work of your Lordship's House, it goes back to the other end somewhat improved. And I would like to thank the Minister for his tolerant acceptance of the debate, which I know at times he found difficult, and the support from Baroness Bloomfield, the Bill team who've had to sit through all of this. I think there's a number of crossbenchers spoke during the debate, and I pick out particularly Lord Hope, the Noble and Learned Lord Hope, the Noble and Learned Lord Thomas, Lord Kerr, Lord Sentamu and Baroness Meacher, and thank them for their commitment. And on the Bishop's bench, the Bishop of Guildford and his contribution was very important, as well as Lord Wigley and Baroness Jones. And I really would like to thank His Majesty's Loyal Opposition and their contribution. I think we worked together very well, in particular with Baroness Grady and Lord Collins, but also all the others who spoke. From these benches, our team, Lord Allen, Baroness Randerson, I think gave fantastic support, and I think gave your Lordships very strong reasons as to why this bill has to change. And I, of course, thank Sarah Pugh in our Whip's office for the hard work that she's doing. My Lords, when this bill does come back, I'm sure we will re-engage, and I hope that team that I've just, and others, will reconvene in the event that the government doesn't see the wisdom of their ways.
Lord, you're always very gracious in your speech, but what worries me, it's true that the House of Commons, as the elected House, is the one really, in the end, determines and fixes the law. But I would have thought, in light of what the Noble Learned Lord Thomas has just said, if you legislate in a bad way, the lesson you learn is not to go back to your bad ways by taking out clauses that have improved the legislation. And the issue of the devolved government not being consulted before you legislate really will harm this United Kingdom, over which King Charles is the head of state. So I beg, please, the other house, the other place, don't just take the clauses out because you are the elected house. Take them because you think you're improving the legislation. And if you're not, please don't make us look like unruly kinds of people.
Lords, can I firstly also add my thanks to the Noble Lord the Minister for the way he's conducted and others who've supported him. I also would like to thank the Bill team who've been very forthcoming in terms of what they think this bill means. I also want to thank my noble friend Baroness O'Grady, who was rather thrown in the deep end, as it were, having just arrived in this House. But I thought she acquitted herself brilliantly and made some very forceful arguments. I also want to thank all noble lords who contributed to the debate, in particular the noble lords on the Lib Dem bench, who played a very active role, but also the bishops' benches, who also played a very positive role in highlighting the evidence about what this bill could lead to. But just concluding on the point that the noble Lord Thomas made, this is a skeleton bill. We don't really know what it means in terms of legislation. I think the remarks of the noble Lord's friend, Jacob Rees-Mogg, sum it up really. We have no idea, MPs won't have any idea about the practical implications of the implementation of the powers that will be granted to ministers, not to the other house, but to ministers. No proper scrutiny. Nevertheless, we have done a very good job. We have amended it. I hope those amendments will be considered positively down the other end. But of course, as I said, at every stage of the bill going through, when Labour returns to government fairly shortly, we will repeal this legislation.
The question is that this bill do now pass. As many as are of that opinion will say content. The contrary not content. The contents have it.